because your performance is not tied to who you are as a person. You should not feel like you have to put on this facade or present this mirror to the world just to show them that you are enough. You are enough on your own. You don't need anything to define your worth. Welcome back to Her Career, Her Way. And our mission is all about empowering ambitious women by giving them the tools to make sense of the chaos that comes with building a career in your 20s. Welcome. So, I'm currently in Milan, Italy, which is why for the new setup and background. And this episode is all about perfectionism. And I think it's a really important topic and something that really hits home with me because it has been something that I have struggled with most of my life. And I really wanted to dig deeper into kind of what perfectionism was and how I can kind of reflect and grow from there. And so I don't know if any of you guys have kind of felt this, but I definitely have felt the need to put on this perfect image and feel like I have things all together all the time, feel in control. And sometimes I walk into a coffee shop and I rehearse what I'm going to say. Like, can I please have a cappuccino? And I kind of see like them saying, yes, of course. And them seeing that, oh, this girl has it all together. This girl knows how to order. She speaks eloquently. And I have this fear of if I mistake a word or somehow I pause or do something that people will perceive me as kind of bad or weird or incoherent. And I just think it's really interesting that I felt like this and that I think that if I make a mistake, that impacts how people think I am and impacts my self-worth, which we're definitely going to dig deeper into this episode. And so I think all of my perfectionist tendencies have kind of made me feel kind of broken until I read the book, The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control by Catherine Morgan Schlaffer. And this is a psychotherapist who has completely reframed how I've thought about perfectionism. And she kind of helps me realize that being perfect and having these tendencies isn't a character flaw, but actually a strength. That if you use it in the right way, in a healthy way, you can have so much. It can do so much for you. And I think about this. My discipline and my planning skills have helped me so much to get an internship or to go on LinkedIn and apply for these things, to follow through and achieve a lot of the things that I have. And it is when I used it in an adaptive way that it has helped me. And when I use my perfectionism to strive for that external validation, that has not been helpful. So today we're kind of going to cover the science behind perfectionism, as well as the 5 types of perfectionists that I think is really interesting, and then also how to make perfectionism work for you, not against you. And so kind of the reframe that changed everything for me about perfectionism was kind of identifying what perfectionism actually means. But I'm going to give you 2 definitions of what perfectionism is. And so the first one is perfectionist is someone who wants everything to be perfect all the time and who gets upset when things aren't done. And the second one is perfectionists are intelligent people who understand that everything can't work out perfectly all the time. And what they sometimes have trouble with is understanding why they still feel so disappointed by imperfection. And they often question, why can't they just enjoy relaxing like a normal person? And so the second definition is by Schlaffer. And I also thought it would be interesting to kind of understand the etymology of perfectionism and what it means. And it's actually from a Latin root. So per fierce. Per means complete and fierce means do. Basically, what perfect means is existing in a state of wholeness, which when you are whole, you cannot add anything because it is already complete. So, when was the last time you felt truly satisfied and done with something? That you did not have to improve on it? There wasn't a little nagging voice in your head saying, this wasn't good enough, this, I needed to do this. No, nothing. Truly felt that you were done with something. I honestly can't even think of one. And I think the key insight to this is it's not about wanting to be perfect or achieving perfection. It's about that feeling of being incomplete and trying to fill that gap and fill that external validation for you to feel good about something. So I think these definitions are really important just to understand what perfect actually means so that then you can maybe reframe your mindset around it. And so you guys know I love diving into research and kind of figuring out why our brains are wired like this and how maybe perfectionist is ingrained in our DNA. And so I thought I'd do a little deep dive into some research about genetics. So, from a study that was conducted with 258 pairs of Spanish twins, it found that self oriented perfectionism, so the standards that we set for ourselves, are 30% genetic in girls. And then the socially prescribed perfectionism, which is kind of believing others have these expectations for us, is 42% heritable in girls. And so if you're thinking about why do I have these perfectionist tendencies? Why do I feel like I struggle with these all the time? Why can't I just chill? It could literally be in your DNA. And kind of having this knowledge that things are in your DNA can give you that, I guess you can say, name it and labeling it, and just a little bit of clarity over it. And once you have clarity over something, I feel like that's when you can own it and redirect and reframe it because you have the power now and you are controlling your thoughts, not the other way around. And then another one is the environmental pressures and influences. And so I definitely have struggled with a lot of these. And one is the educational pressure. I remember a lot of my self worth was tied to my GPA in high school. And I was always fearful that if I didn't get perfect A's, or if I wasn't accepted in the National Honor Society, or if I didn't have this many societies and these kind of labels and things hanging when I graduated with my cap and gown, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't smart, that I was stupid. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, that you have nightmares about not graduating with summa cum laude, or you don't have a 4-point GPA, so you're not good enough to get into an Ivy League or something like that, or striving for the Ivy Leagues, or just feeling like you are not as smart as your peers. And I think that really can create a sense of fear and scaredness that having that A plus makes you a better person. When in reality, that's not really true. And then there's also the family dynamics and the family pressures about maybe your parents want you to be a doctor or a lawyer or an investment banker, or you have the fear that you won't make enough money. So you want to be the most financially independent and secure person in your family. And there's also a lot of cultural expectations that go along with having a career and being in a high job position or something like that. And I always know that I felt a lot of pressure also just from my friends too. They would constantly label me as kind of the boss lady or the one that has it all together or she looks so put together. And I felt like these kind of compliments, which what they were, felt more like a label that I had to live up to. If I didn't have it all together, then people would perceive me badly and that I would be looked down upon or I wouldn't be good enough or something like that. And I think it's really interesting that I kind of thought that if I didn't have it all together, that my friends would think less of me because I'm sure they wouldn't. Because your performance is not tied to who you are as a person. You should not feel like you have to put on this facade or present this mirror to the world just to show them that you are enough. You are enough on your own. You don't need anything to define your worth. And I'm definitely going to get more into self esteem and self worth later on. And so I guess the point of all of these kind of environmental pressures is that they have developed as a coping mechanism. Your perfectionist tendencies for these have developed as a protection for you. They've helped you gain that approval that you so desperately wanted. It has helped you avoid that criticism that you're fearful of and rejection, or it has helped you feel more in control, which I know I have dealt with a lot. But the reality is that you don't need to please everyone. Rejection is inevitable. Humans make mistakes all the time. It is in our nature. But how can you kind of grow from that and not belittle yourself in the process of it? And so now I'm going to go into the 5 types of perfectionists, which I really think is interesting and kind of gets fun. And you'll definitely see yourself in one if you're a perfectionist. And I know I do. So the first one is the intense perfectionist. And these are the hardcore, laser focused people, such as the chef kind of screaming at the other people or kind of being like, why is this risotto not creamy enough? Or why haven't you salted it? Or why haven't you tasted it? And these people have very high expectations for themselves, but also for other people. And they can't function with anything less than perfect. And then number two is the classic perfectionist. And I'm definitely one of those. It is the type A kind of people with the color coded calendars planning the girls' trips 6 months in advance. And so these people really struggle with spontaneity and possibly have a hard time forming deep connections because they want them to be perfect. And then number three is the Parisian perfectionist, which is the people pleasing energy and deeply rooted in wanting to make connections. And these people are normally fearful of when you go to a dinner party, what if they don't invite me the next time? Or saying yes to things even when they are completely exhausted. Number four is the procrastinator perfectionist. And these people can be amazing at research and preparation, but they're terrible at starting. So they have the 17 tabs open with 0 words written because they're scared that when they start something, it won't live up to their expectations. Number five is the messy perfectionist, which is kind of the opposite of the procrastinator. And these are the people that love starting projects. But once that kind of initial excitement wears off, they have 17 and a half unfinished projects because they're kind of scared that it won't be good enough at the end. So why finish it? So I'm definitely the classic and Parisian perfectionist, and I'd love to know what you guys are. So definitely put them in the comments below, and I'll link the assessment link for the perfectionist types in the show notes so you can kind of see which one you resonate with most. And these 5 types of perfectionists were identified by Schlafler in her book. So it wouldn't be her career her way without a little bit of spice and a hot take discussion. So I'm going to now talk about kind of the gender role in perfectionism. And I do want to preface that these are kind of just what I've read in the book, as well as kind of things that I've taken out from them. And when I talk about gender and kind of how I guess society has put these pressures in for these different genders, I just want you to kind of take it with a grain of salt and use it to acknowledge how these norms are made and how maybe they have had an impact in your life, but don't use them to attach it to your identity and that we are stuck as human beings. Because I think it's more important to acknowledge it, take control of it, and then grow from it. Because you do not have to stay stuck in these societal pressures. We can redirect, we can move on from here, and we can change. So I think this should be more empowering rather than being like a crutch to lean on. Basically, I'm going to go into the balance trap and what it means. So, life is full of ebbs and flows, as we know, and it is not static, as I talked about in my productivity episode. And we are constantly having uncertainty and juggling multiple tasks at once. I mean, you think you have your day planned, your timetable is getting coffee, doing some work, going to this class, then winding down for the night or whatever. But you don't plan for kind of the unexpected email or the call from your mom wanting to do something or the friend crying because her boyfriend just broke up with her and now you have to be this, not you have to, but you want to be the supportive friend to help her. And so once you kind of accept that there is uncertainty and that there are things that come up in your day, the more bandwidth you have to actually juggle these tasks. But society kind of looks at this as women shouldn't have to juggle these many tasks. And actually, it's unhealthy to juggle this many tasks. I mean, picture this, a woman who's working late has to constantly attend events, doesn't have time to cook dinner at night sometimes because she's busy emailing somebody across the globe that is in a different time zone. And these women are constantly called hot messes that doesn't have it together and that is way too busy. But then a man doing the same exact thing is seen as ambitious. And this is kind of a lot how society views it, is that they don't want women to have the bandwidth to juggle more tasks. They actually think it's unhealthy for them. But men, it's perfectly fine for them to do what they need to do at any cost. And I'm sure this is a major stereotype, and probably not all people think like this, but I think it is a common thing for people to say, like, you need balance, but more to a woman. And I thought it was interesting how in 2010 there was a study conducted that showed that women also apologize more and that they constantly kind of cushion their requests. So, kind of, sorry, can you pass the coffee? Or, sorry, I have a question. Or, sorry about that I didn't email you last night. I was busy, but I'll definitely reschedule and we can do it at this time. I've definitely been guilty of this. I mean, I have apologized way too much. I still sometimes apologize for things like that. And I think it's interesting because why am I apologizing for my needs and my wants? Like, you should not have to apologize for what you need and what your desires are. You should unapologetically have your desires and needs and state them and get them fulfilled because you are deserving of that. We are all deserving of our wants and needs, and you should not have to apologize for them. As humans, we all have desires, and that inherently makes us who we are. It makes us unique, it makes us different. And it's also unfair not tell people what our needs are because people are not mind readers. They don't know what you want and need, so you can't expect them to guess them for you. And so it's kind of on you to state what you need, and it is okay to do that. And that is something I'm constantly learning because I have a hard time expressing what I need because I'm fearful that people will think I'm too much, or people will think that I'm clingy, or whatever perception that people have on me that's negative. But why should I apologize for what I need? I deserve my wants and desires just as much as the next person. And so it is so important for you not to apologize for your needs. You are deserving of it. And then Schlafler noted that increased balance isn't about women's health, it's about the threat of their power. And another quote that hit me was, "A woman who wants more is ungrateful. A man who wants more is a visionary." Just pause to think about that one for a minute. I mean, that one hit me like a truck. How many times have you downplayed your ambition or apologized for wanting more? I have definitely apologized for wanting more and definitely downplayed my ambition. And I feel like women are also constantly taught to not want things or not be enough. Our ambition, our capacity, and our refusal to stay small, that is what threatens people. And it's not about that people are worried or about our well being, it's that they are threatened by the idea that somebody could have what they want and actually live it. And you should not apologize for your dreams. You should live them out. You should have the biggest things, you should have the biggest desires and be unapologetic for them. I mean, you should not apologize for your needs and you should not downplay that or minimize that and belittle yourself just so then you can fit into a societal expectation or pressure. And I think it's really important just to remember that wanting more is not being needy or high maintenance. It's actually a step and a tool for you to reach your goals and your ambitions and living that dream life that you so desire. So, I think it's really important to kind of reframe how you look about your language that you use and also understand that it's okay to express what you need. So, yeah, I think it's just important to remember that. I also just wanted to kind of go into a little metaphor, which is called the joy diet that Schlafler mentioned in our book, because I think it's kind of important to just see how sometimes our maladaptive perfectionist mindset can take us. And so one of them is like the low cal one, which is I'll have a little joy because I worked hard. Or the paleo one, where I only get joy from my dog, or the intermittent fasting one where I'll only express joy for 30 minutes before I go to bed. So, how this connects with perfectionism is that we think we have to earn the joy to stay motivated. And we think that joy is fuel and not a reward. And so, constantly justifying pleasure instead of just enjoying it, that's what keeps us stuck instead of using our adaptive perfectionist tendencies to grow. And maladaptive perfectionists are driven from a source of prevention and fear. There's so much fear around not living up to expectations or not having that external validation or whatever it is. Whereas the adaptive perfectionist is playing to win. You're more promotion oriented. You're inspired by your goals that you actually want, not driven by other people. I mean, this ties into the whole thing about having your needs met and your desires that you actually want because you are serving you. You're not serving anybody else at the end of the day. You get to live this one life and you should be living it for you and what you want. I thought that analogy was really just eye opening to see that you are deserving of everything, all at once. And this kind of transitions perfectly into the foundation of self worth and self esteem. So, I'm going to give you a scenario where you have kind of bombed a presentation. You've missed a really important part in your presentation, or you messed up on a word, or you missed an example, or you stuttered, or you couldn't answer someone's question, whatever. So, coming from a self esteem point of view, you say, I'm terrible. I don't belong here. Why am I here? Nobody's going to hire me after this. Very performance biased. And then you have the self worth, where, that presentation didn't go as well, but what can I learn from that? And it's coming from that inherent value. And so I think the trap that we get in is that we live in the state of after I achieve X, then I'll be worthy. Or if I do well on this, then I can get this. And so I think it's just really important to understand that your worth is not tied to your performance. Your worth is given to you as a birthright. And as Baldwin says, your crown has been bought and paid for. All you have to do is wear it. So if something doesn't go well or you failed on that, whatever, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That just means that that instant maybe didn't go well, and kind of reflect on how you can improve on it and grow from there. Reframe that failure into a lesson. And so this goes into kind of the tools that will actually help you use your perfectionist tendencies that will work for you and not against you. And so number one is self-compassion. So Dr. Kristen Neff, an educational psychologist, says that self-compassion can actually help reduce maladaptive perfectionism without lowering your standards. So self-compassion can help you without lowering your standards, which I think is really important because perfectionists never want to lower their standards. So basically, instead of confusing your behavior with yourself, reframe it. As I said, performance is not your self-worth, and it should not be tied to your self-worth. So if you don't get that A plus, I'm a bad person. Change that into, if I don't get that A plus, this is just in this instance. This is just a performance that I did, but it doesn't define who I am as a person, because I deserve all the love, joy, connection in the world, and that isn't tied to how well I do or what my job title is. Number two is restoration. I've always struggled with relaxation. I mean, I've always felt so guilty by relaxing, and I definitely mentioned this in my productivity episode because it kind of feels like failure. And I wanted to reflect on that and understand why. And it's because a lot of rest requires decompression, where you're letting go of pressure, which is what perfectionists thrive on. I mean, it is literally everything for them. I know that when I have so much to do, such as you have to get this task done, you have to make sure that you follow up on this email, and you have to do this, this, and that, and all that noise and chatter from everyone else, that is what fuels you to keep on going. But when you realize that that's actually all about the external validation that you're seeking, and you're coming from a place of prevention and fear and incompleteness, that's when you realize this isn't healthy for me. I actually need to come from a place of intention and who I am as a person and what I want. And that's where it can be inspired rather than need and shoulds. And there's also two types of restoration that have really helped me, because one is the passive, which is the decompression one, where you're kind of emptying out, you're resting, you're maybe watching a movie, watching a sunset, being still. And then there's the active one, where you're filling up and engaging in life. And the active one has really helped me because it has kind of shifted my mindset around just sitting still, which is sometimes really hard for me, and giving me a different outlet of restoration. And you kind of match this with your type. So if you're an intense perfectionist, maybe exercise and having that physical element can let that energy out. Or a classic perfectionist being doing detail-oriented work, such as reorganizing a bookshelf or something like that. Or a Parisian one, kind of having that connection element by sending someone a care package or writing a letter to a friend or something like that. Or a messy and procrastinator perfectionist, having those quick completable tasks so you can feel like you finished something, such as like a simple meal or something like that. And it's important to acknowledge that you can have both passive and active. And so basically both passive and active restoration are really important for relaxing. And I think it's definitely a good stepping stone when you feel like you can't just rest and decompress. you can do the active one instead. And it kind of, I don't know, I guess reframes your mind around restoration and what it is. It has definitely been a really helpful tool that's been beneficial to me in my steps to relaxing a little bit. Number three is the language shifts. And this is where you kind of hold opinions rather than judgments. So opinions are kind of thoughts. This presentation needs more research or data. And then a judgment would be, I'm horrible at presenting. This could have gone so much better. I'm a terrible person. What's wrong with me? So it's very attached to that self worth. And so it's more adaptive and more beneficial if you hold thoughts instead of the judgments. Because again, what you do, what you achieve is not reflective of who you are as a person. And then also striking when the iron is cold. So if you have just gotten out of an exam and you feel like you've totally botched it, and your friends are saying how easy that was, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, why are they thinking it was so easy? It was so hard. Or you're thinking about how your parents are going to get so mad at you for getting such a bad grade on this exam, that is not the time to reflect on being like what you could do better. You are so stressed out and anxious and in that fear mentality that you can't even comprehend and reflect. So instead, when you're maybe feeling a little bit more relaxed and you've watched a movie, you've had your cup of tea, a little bit of chocolate, you've had a good night's rest, and then you're feeling a little bit more calm, that is when you strike. That is when you reflect on saying, did I actually go to all my lectures? Did I prepare as well as I should have? Did I ask the right questions? Did I ask any questions in general? That is when you kind of reflect and see what you've done and how you can do better. So I think that's really important. My therapist always tells me to do that. So yeah, take a beat, give yourself grace. That's so important. Number four is the do less framework. And I'm going to give you this in kind of with examples just to explain it better. So, number one is, what do you actually want? Do you want to be in a marketing role because you love the creativity aspect and it is just something that you feel called to? Or are you going the route of, I should do finance because it pays more? So, really align and be intentional with what you actually want to do because you live one life and you should live it how you choose it and live it for you and not anybody else. Number two is surrender to the possibilities. Maybe the perfect job doesn't exist yet. Maybe it does. Don't try to control everything. Don't try to control the how all the time. Just kind of let it go. I definitely want to do an episode about the art of letting go because it's very important to me, I think. Anyways, number three is finding meaning in the small actions. You don't have to do a big achievement every single time. Sometimes the smaller things are just as important, such as the encouraging text to a friend or making eye contact with a person. I know when somebody stops me in the street and tells me that my outfit looks good, that makes my day 1,000 times better. So it's the small things that matter sometimes because those are the incremental steps to helping you achieve that dream life that you want. Number four is self forgiveness isn't binary. So you can love yourself, but you don't always have to love every single choice that you've done. You can reflect on things that maybe you want to change, but you can still love yourself as a person. Number five is accept uncertainty. Life is uncertain. You cannot control everything, and there is no right path. There is just your path. And trust is built over time. I found it really interesting that people who trust themselves the most are usually the people that have betrayed themselves the most. And I definitely resonate with that. I have definitely gone against myself and my values as a person just to present a better front or fit in with society and done all these things. So I've really reframed my perspective around regret. And now I don't regret things. I see them as lessons and those little imperfections that people, might see or you might see when you're younger and use them as tools and guidance and things that have made me become who I am today. I mean, I am not who I am today without all those imperfections and those mistakes that I've done. I've learned from them and I've grown from them. And now I've used them to create what I want in life. Use them as tools to grow and achieve my ambitions. And I'm still learning. I still make mistakes. And each little mistake and imperfection now I think takes me a little bit closer to achieving what I want and achieving my dream life that I so desire. So I think it's really important just to realize that it takes time. Also, trust this journey and a process. And these are beautiful things in life that help you grow and become the person that you want. Really sit with that and realize that there is nothing wrong that you're doing. You can do no wrong. Everything happens for a reason. I firmly believe that, and it will guide you where you're meant to be. So, I wanted to leave you with a little quote from Dr. Adler, a psychotherapist, and he said that all present life appears to him only in preparation. So, you are not broken. You are not too much. You are not behind in life. You are not living in preparation. This is your life. You are currently living your life. And I want you to try to envision that you've already had the best life. And now you're just living it. You're just along for the journey. Don't stress about the how of things. I definitely want to do an episode about that and just how we're so intensely thinking all the time about how do we do this? How do we achieve this? But just kind of letting go and realize that you will get there. You will achieve your dreams. Don't stress about how you're going to do it because you never know when an opportunity is going to come up. My friend said this to me, and it has changed so much for me. And I know I'm dramatic in saying it's life changing, but truly, I feel like I learn things every day and it shifts my mindset so much. To give you an example, over the past couple of weeks, I've been having horrible sleep. I've been waking up in the night. I've been having a hard time falling asleep, staying asleep, especially after I've woken up. And instead of kind of stressing about how I'm going to get a better night's sleep, how am I going to stay asleep, whatever, I envisioned that that night I had the best sleep of my life. I slept through the whole night. I had the best dream. I woke up feeling so refreshed and ready to take on the day. And I kid you not, that night I had pretty good sleep. I only woke up once, which is a huge, huge improvement. And it was because I think I let go of that fear of not getting enough sleep and the hows to get enough sleep and the stress of it, that it released that kind of anxious, built up energy in me and allowed me to just relax and let go. And yeah, so I invite you to kind of stop kind of stressing about living in that preparation phase and just living your life how it is. Again, making sure that you're taking the steps to achieve your dreams too, because it's important to also do the work. And I can definitely do an episode about kind of when being delusional is a little bit too much. But also, it's important to kind of be delusional too. So there's two sides of the coin, and it's always important to kind of be in that happy medium. So the final thought is that your perfectionism has protected you and has served you for a reason. But now let it serve you differently, not as kind of this thing to keep you trapped and stagnant, but as a tool to help you grow and achieve. So I hope this episode was really helpful for you and kind of helped you reframe your mindset around perfectionism and how it can work for you and not against you. And next week, we're going to go dive into kind of financial literacy and beginner's guide to finance with a very special guest, which I'm really excited for. Definitely DM me, message me, comment down below what resonated for you most in this episode. And also, if you guys have any tools on what has helped you in your perfectionist journey, definitely put them below and share with them with the community. I know I'd love to hear it and gain more knowledge because I'm definitely always on this journey as well. Follow me on Her Career, Her Way on wherever you watch on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok so that we can connect and build this community. And also so that I can keep on making these episodes and making sure that my topics are aligned with what you guys want. So thank you again. I appreciate you guys for listening and sticking with me through this episode. And I look forward to the next one. Bye.